Mr. Cain, this question was one of the top 10 video questions voted on by people online, and it comes to us from Lee Doran of Arlington, Virginia, via YouTube.
My question is, if you were forced to eliminate one department from the federal government, which one would you eliminate and why? Thank you.
The first department, if I were forced to eliminate a department, I would start with the EPA and start all over. It's out of control. Now, I know that makes some people nervous, but the EPA has gone wild. The fact that they have a regulation that goes into effect January 1st, 2012, to regulate dust says that they've gone too far. So rather than try to fix it, eliminate all of the things that they have right now and then start rebuilding a responsible EPA. Now, with the rest of my time, may I offer a solution for Social Security rather than continuing to talk about what you call it? I have proposed the Chilean model. It's been around 30 years and it works. It's a personal retirement account. And in the last 30 years, not only has Chile succeeded with that model, but 30 other countries have done so. I don't think we're doing a service to the American people to keep bantering about what you call it and what you don't call it. The solution is fix it.
Speaker Gingrich, every day the federal government takes in about $6 billion, but spends about 10. Right? So we borrow 40 cents of every dollar we spend. Now, I understand that you believe that if we modernize the federal government, then it'll help a lot. It'll save billions. But given the resistance that we've seen in Washington, the seeming intractable resistance we've seen in Washington to spending cuts, how can you possibly slash spending by 40%? How can you do it?
Well, the way you described the question, you can't.
Well, that's it.
I mean,
stick up for
if you assume Washington remains the way Washington is right now, it's all hopeless. We might as well buy Greek bonds and go down together.
How do you get us past that?
Well, next Thursday in Des Moines, I'm going to outline a 21st century contract with America. It's going to be far bolder, far deeper, far more profound than what we did in 1994 or what I helped Jack Kemp and Ronald Reagan do in 1980. It's important to remember, this month in the Reagan administration, September 1983, we created 1,100,000 new jobs. Obama's socialist policies, class warfare and bureaucratic socialism, we created 0 in August. I believe with leadership we can balance the budget. I did it for 4 consecutive years. We went from $2.2 trillion projected deficit over a decade to $2.7 trillion projected surplus when I left. I think it is doable, but it takes real leadership.
Thank you, Megan. The next question is for all of the candidates. It comes to us from Atlanta, Georgia, on the topic of education.
Hi, I'm Stella Lohman from Atlanta, Georgia. I've taught in both public and private schools and now as a substitute teacher. I see administrators more focused on satisfying federal mandates, retaining funding, and trying not to get sued, while the teachers are jumping through hoops, trying to serve up a one-size-fits-all education for their students. What, as president, would you seriously do about what I consider a massive overreach of big government into the classroom? Thank you.
That topic is for all candidates, and to get everyone to weigh in, 30 seconds each, please. Governor Johnson.
I'm promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. That's a 43% reduction in federal spending. I am going to promise to advocate the abolishment of the Federal Department of Education. The Federal Department of Education gives each state 11 cents out of every dollar that every state spends, but it comes with 16 cents worth of strings attached. So what America does not understand is that it's a negative to take federal money, give it to 50 laboratories of innovation, the states to improve on, and that's what we'll see, dramatic improvement.
Senator Santorum.
Yeah, 20 years ago, the federal contribution to education was 3%. It's now 11%, and our schools are doing worse. And it's exactly what Gary Johnson just said. It's because the federal governments are meddling. The bottom line problem with education is that the education system doesn't serve the customer of the education system. And who's the customer? The parents. Because it's the parents' responsibility to educate the children. It's been that responsibility from the moment they were born. They began the education of their children. At some point, the government has convinced parents that at some point, it's no longer their responsibility. In fact, they force them, in many respects, to turn their children over to the public education system and wrest control from them and block them out of the participation of that. That has to change, or education will not improve in this country.
Speaker Gingrich.
I think you need very profound reform in education at the state level. You need to dramatically shrink the Federal Department of Education, get rid of virtually all of its regulations. And the truth is, I believe we'd be far better off if most states adopted a program of the equivalent of Pell Grants for K through 12, so that parents could choose where their child went to school, whether it was public or private or homeschooling, and parents could be involved. Florida has a virtual school program that is worth the entire country studying, as an example.
Congressman Paul.
If you care about your children, you'll get the federal government out of the business of educating our kids. In 1980, when the Republican Party ran, part of the platform was to get rid of the Department of Education. By the year 2000, it was eliminated, and we fed on to it. Then we, as Republicans, added No Child Left Behind. So the first thing a president should do is the goal should be set to get the government out completely, but don't enforce this law of No Child Left Behind. It's not going to do any good, and nobody likes it. And there's no value to it. The teachers don't like it, and the students don't like it. But there are other things that the federal government can do, and that is give tax credits for the people who will opt out. We ought to have a right to opt out of the public system if you want.
Governor Perry.
There are a lot of good ideas here on the side, whether it's cutting back on the Department of Education, making those types of reductions. I happen to believe we ought to be promoting school choice all across this country. I think the voucher system, charter schools all across this country, but there's one person on this stage that is for Obama's race to the top, and that is Governor Romney. He said so just this last week, and I think that is an important difference between the rest of the people on this stage and one person that wants to run for the presidency, being in favor of the Obama race to the top, and that is not conservative.
Governor Romney.
Nice try. Let me tell you what I think I do. One, education has to be held at the local and state level, not at the federal level. We need to get the federal government out of education. And secondly, all the talk about we need smaller classroom size, look, that's promoted by the teachers' unions to hire more teachers. We looked at what drives good education in our state. What we found is the best thing for education is great teachers. Hire the very best and brightest to be teachers, pay them properly, make sure that you have school choice, test your kids to see if they're meeting the standards that need to be met, and make sure that you put the parents in charge. And as president, I'll stand up to the national teachers unions.
Governor